My name is Rebecca Wilson. At 38, I stood at my mother's funeral, bracing for the moment my sister would arrive. 6 years had passed since Stephanie betrayed me. She stole Nathan, my fiance, my future. They vanished from my life, leaving silence where family used to live. The room buzzed with low voices and damp coats. Rain clung to the windows. Grief sat heavy in my chest, but a deeper ache waited behind it. When the chapel doors opened, I knew. I didn't need to look. I felt her presence like a cold wind down my spine. She entered with Nathan's fingers wrapped in his. Her diamond ring caught the light. Her smile was the same, smug, pleased. But I wasn't the same girl she left behind, and she had no idea who I'd become or who was waiting to meet her. My mother Eleanor was everything to me. She raised us in a modest home outside Boston, quiet streets, peeling porch paint, warm Sunday dinners. She taught me how to stand tall, how to stay soft. Even after I moved downtown for my job in marketing, we talked daily. She was the voice I trusted most. She reminded me of who I was when I forgot. When she got sick, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, my world shifted. 8 months of pain chemo and hospital visits. She never complained. She still asked how I was sleeping. In her final days, she made me promise something. Find peace. Not just success. Not just survival. Peace. She died holding my hand. I didn't know how to live without her. But I remembered her words, and I knew one thing. She wouldn't want me to carry bitterness into the rest of my life. 6 years ago, my life looked perfect on paper. I had the job, the apartment, the routines, but at night the silence echoed louder than any city noise. Then came Nathan Reynolds. I met him at a charity gala. My friend Allison introduced us, and something clicked. He was confident, magnetic, the kind of man who turned heads. A self-made tech millionaire, but not arrogant, just sure of himself. We talked about art travel work. He listened with interest. He made me feel seen. After our first date, I called my mom. I think I met someone real, I told her. Weekends turned into getaways. Dinners turned into plans. And before long, Nathan wasn't just a name in my phone. He was the future I began to believe in. 18 months passed like a dream. Nathan was thoughtful, romantic. Weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard, box seats at the symphony, late-night talks that felt like promises. One evening, he invited me to dinner on a yacht in Boston Harbor. The city lights danced on the water. I thought it was just another of his surprises, but then he knelt. A 5-carat diamond sparkled in a velvet box. "Marry me," he said. I didn't hesitate. Yes, poured out of me like breath. My mom cried when I told her. She started planning before I finished the story. She said we deserved a wedding as big as our love. Nathan had the money to make it perfect, and I had the belief that it was real. I didn't know then that diamonds can blind you. Stephanie was 2 years younger than me. Growing up, we were close when we weren't competing. She always wanted what I had. Grades, friends, clothes, even my spot at the dinner table. Still, I believed adulthood had changed us. We were no longer girls keeping score. I asked her to be my maid of honor. It felt right. Mom said it would bring us closer. When I introduced her to Nathan at a family dinner, she smiled too brightly, laughed too easily. Her hand lingered on his arm. I brushed it off. That's just Stephanie. Charming, bold, a little too much. At our engagement party, I caught her watching him. When our eyes met, she raised her glass with a smile. It wasn't until later that night in the kitchen when my mother said, "Be careful, sweetheart. You know how your sister can get when you have something she admires." 3 months before the wedding, something shifted. Nathan worked late more often. He answered texts at strange hours, always business. Our Friday date nights became optional. When we were together, he was distant. He'd scroll through his phone during dinner. His eyes looked past me even when I spoke. He started criticizing me. My laugh was too loud. My favorite dress made me look tired. The book light by our bed kept him awake. I tried harder. I wore lipstick he once loved. I cooked his favorite meals. I said nothing when he came home late. Stephanie called more, always asking about wedding details. "I just wanted to be perfect for you," she'd say. But something in her voice felt rehearsed, and something in Nathan's silence felt like the start of a goodbye he didn't know how to say out loud. One morning I did his laundry. I found perfume on his collar, floral heavy. Not mine. Not even close. My stomach dropped. He said it was from an investor. Rebecca Mills. Big deal. She hugged me goodbye. He laughed like it was nothing. I wanted to believe him. But the doubt was a slow poison. It stayed under my skin. I told Allison over coffee. She sipped her latte and said, "Everyone gets cold feet before a wedding, but I wasn't cold. I was burning." Inside, something was unraveling. At lunch with my mother, she reached for my hand. "You seem far away," she said. "Just tired." I lied. But I wasn't tired. I was slipping, holding on to something that no longer held me back, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend. I was cleaning Nathan's car before a dinner party. His suits were in the back seat, old receipts on the floor. Then I saw it wedged near the passenger seat, a silver earring with a tiny sapphire. My breath caught. I knew that earring. Stephanie wore them at our engagement party. They were our grandmother's, a one-of-a-kind set. That night, I showed it to Nathan. He didn't flinch. "She dropped it when I gave her a ride to the florist," he said. "Her car was in the shop." His voice was smooth, too smooth, like a man who'd practiced the line in the mirror. I called Stephanie. She told the same story word for word, almost too perfectly. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering when my life had started becoming a lie. I stopped eating. My clothes hung looser. Dark circles deepened beneath my eyes. Nathan didn't notice, or didn't care. He still came home late, still kissed me like it was routine, not love. I started therapy without telling him. Once a week, I sat in a quiet office and unraveled, tried to find where I'd gone missing in my own story. 3 weeks before the wedding, Nathan suggested we postpone. "You're not yourself lately," he said. "Maybe we need space." I begged him to tell me the truth, what I'd done, how to fix it. He said nothing was wrong, but his eyes were already gone. That night I woke at 3 a.m. His side of the bed was cold. From the hallway, I heard him whispering into the dark, "Not now. She'll hear us." The next morning, I packed his favorite sandwich, turkey no mayo, whole grain bread. I told myself it was kindness, but it wasn't. I drove to his office unannounced. I needed to see what he looked like when he didn't expect me. The security guard smiled, waved me through. He recognized me, called me by name. That stung more than it should have. Upstairs, his secretary blinked when she saw me. "Rebecca, we weren't expecting you." "That's okay," I smiled, holding the lunch bag. "I'll just drop this off." She stepped in front of me. He asked not to be disturbed. That was when I knew. I walked past her heart-pounding hand, cold on the doorknob. I opened the door and saw everything. Nathan, Stephanie, her skirt, his hands, their kiss. And in that moment, something inside me stopped breaking and started hardening. The door clicked shut behind me. They froze. Stephanie still in his arms, her skirt rumpled, his tie undone, like they'd forgotten I existed. Nathan spoke first. "This isn't what it looks like." Stephanie didn't lie. She looked me in the eye and said, "We didn't plan this. It just happened." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood holding the lunch bag like a fool with hope in her hands. "How long?" I asked. Nathan hesitated. Stephanie didn't. "Since the engagement party," she said. 4 months. 4 months of lies, of choices, of silence, of me planning a wedding while they planned whatever this was. Nathan moved behind his desk like it would protect him. Stephanie looked away. I dropped the bag. "You deserve each other," I said. Then I turned and didn't look back. I made it to my car before I fell apart. The sobs came fast, then faster. I could barely see the road through the blur of tears. At home, I collapsed on the bathroom floor. I curled around myself like a child and called the only number I still trusted, my mother. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "We're coming." My parents arrived within the hour. Dad's face was red with fury. "I'll kill him," he muttered. Mom pulled me into her arms. Her hands ran through my hair like when I was little. "I've got you," she whispered. The next few days passed in pieces, canceling vendors, returning the ring, erasing a future that no longer existed. Stephanie moved into Nathan's apartment. Her clothes replaced mine. That hurt more than the lie. It meant she was never sorry. I stopped leaving my apartment. Days blurred together. I skipped meals, ignored calls. Even breathing felt like effort. My therapist diagnosed me with depression. She prescribed medication, suggested rest. But rest doesn't come when your heart is loud. I lost a major client at work. I broke down crying during a pitch. My boss gently asked if I needed time off. I said yes. Boston no longer felt like home. Every corner carried his name. Every shadow looked like her. Then a job opened in our Chicago office, marketing director, a clean slate. I applied without telling anyone. 2 weeks later, I got the offer. When I told mom, she helped me pack. She wrapped family photos in tissue, pressed my sweaters flat with shaking hands. She didn't say, "Don't go." She only said, "Promise you'll call." Chicago felt cold even in spring. My apartment was small and sterile. White walls, empty closets, quiet nights. I worked long hours to avoid going home. Takeout containers stacked in the sink. Sleep came only when I was too tired to think. No one knew me here. That was both a curse and a gift. I could disappear or begin again. I didn't decorate, didn't unpack the photos. I told myself I wasn't staying long. But each morning I showed up to work. Each evening I survived. Then one Sunday my phone rang. It was Mom. "Rebecca," she said softly, "you need to hear this from me. Stephanie and Nathan got married yesterday. A courthouse wedding, small but featured in Boston Magazine front page. Stephanie wore my ring, and suddenly I couldn't breathe again. That night I drank a full bottle of wine alone, scrolled through old photos, our faces frozen in fake forever. I cried until my eyes swelled shut, until the pillow was soaked, until my chest hurt from holding so much. I called in sick the next morning. I stared at the ceiling for hours. The silence wasn't empty, it screamed. But something shifted. I stood up, deleted every photo of Nathan, blocked them both on social media, took a long hot shower. I imagined the pain washing off me, dripping down the drain with every breath. At work, I stopped hiding, started showing up for real this time. My boss noticed, so did the clients, and for the first time in months, I started to feel like someone who might just survive this. I started saying yes to small things. A team lunch, a book club invite from Madison, our HR director, an after-work walk by the lake. Chicago slowly unfolded. Its noise, its motion, its anonymous kindness. Madison became my first real friend in the city. She was loud, funny, persistent. She reminded me I was still alive. Through her, I met others women with messy lives and open hearts. We traded stories over wine and pasta, laughed about things that didn't matter just to feel good. Madison tried setting me up a few times. I always said no. I wasn't ready for romance. But I was ready for realness, for connection without conditions, for people who didn't see me as broken. I still had hard days, but now I had somewhere to go on the good ones. 3 months into my Chicago life, I was sent to a tech conference in San Francisco. Just work, no emotions, no distractions. The second night, I attended a business dinner. Assigned seating placed me beside a quiet man in a navy suit, Zachary Foster. He wasn't flashy, didn't lead with credentials or charm, but he asked questions that made me think. We talked about marketing trends, books, podcasts, bad coffee. When he asked for my card, I gave it. No spark, no story, just a conversation that felt easy. The next morning, he emailed, "Would you like to finish that conversation over coffee before the last session?" I hesitated, then said yes. It wasn't a date, just two people talking. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to pretend. We met for coffee the next morning. It wasn't romantic. No butterflies, just peace. We talked about work, shared frustrations about deadlines and bad clients. He listened more than he spoke. Back in Chicago, we stayed in touch. Emails, a few referrals, occasional lunches that blurred the line between casual and curious. Madison noticed. "He likes you," she said, grinning. "Not just your pitch decks." I denied it. We were colleagues. That was it. But Zachary remembered the little things. How I liked oat milk, which podcast made me laugh. He never pushed, never pried. He made space without asking for any. One afternoon, he sent flowers. No note, just a quiet gesture after a long, rough week. And I realized maybe safety didn't always look like excitement. Sometimes it looked like calm. Zachary asked me to dinner, not a work dinner, a real one. I said yes, then nearly backed out twice, but I showed up. We sat near a window, soft jazz playing. The menu blurred in my hands. My heart raced. Palms damp. I couldn't breathe. "I need a minute," I whispered, standing too fast. He followed me outside but didn't ask questions, just stood beside me, silent, steady. When I finally looked at him, he didn't look confused or annoyed, only kind. He drove me home. No pressure, no explanations. The next morning, flowers arrived at my office. A note in his handwriting, no pressure, no expectations. "Just hoping you're okay, Zachary." And that's when I knew he wasn't trying to fix me. He was just willing to stay. That night I called him. I didn't know what to say at first, but he waited. I told him about Nathan, about Stephanie, about the ring, the lie, the morning I couldn't breathe. I kept waiting for judgment, for pity, for discomfort. But all I heard was quiet, and then his voice steady low. My wife left me, he said, for my business partner. They'd built a company together. She took half when she left. He lost more than money. Broken trust leaves scars, he said, but it doesn't mean we're broken people. We talked for hours. No fixing, no advice, just presence. After that night, something shifted. Not fast, not romantic, just safe. Like standing beside someone who knew how it felt to fall apart and still chose to show up. We didn't rush anything. No labels, no pressure, just walks, coffee, and quiet dinners that didn't need filling. Zachary never pushed. He let me lead. Let me pause. Let me breathe. When panic came, he knew how to stay still. Not to fix, just to be there. For our 5th date, he cooked at his place instead of a restaurant. Grilled salmon, a playlist of old jazz, no candles, no expectation. After dinner, we sat on the floor talking about nothing and everything. He never compared me to anyone, never tried to change the pace, and for the first time in years, love didn't feel like pressure. It felt like space, like softness, like I didn't have to protect myself just to be seen. One morning, I woke up in his apartment. He was still asleep, light coming through the window, soft and gold. I watched him breathe, watched the lines on his face relax in sleep, and I knew I loved him. It wasn't fireworks or racing hearts. It was quiet, steady. He brought me coffee the way I liked it. Oat milk, a dash of cinnamon. He remembered small things and never made me feel small. My old fears didn't vanish, but they no longer controlled the room. I didn't say I love you that day. I wasn't ready. But when he smiled at me just because I existed, something inside whispered back, yes. Not to the past, not to the pain, but to this, to now. Zachary's sister Caroline visited from Portland. He wanted us to meet. I was nervous, but said yes. She was warm, asked about my job, my favorite authors, my go-to coffee order. She listened like she meant it. We laughed over dinner, shared stories of Zachary as a kid, awkward, bookish, loyal to a fault. She painted a picture I already knew by heart. Later that night, she texted me, "He's different with you. Lighter, like he can breathe." We started messaging on our own. Memes, recipes, childhood photos of Zachary in bad sweaters. She became mine too, not just his. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be welcomed. No tests, no tension, just space to be. Not a guest, not a placeholder, but someone who mattered, someone who stayed. I started calling home again. Not out of guilt, but because I missed their voices. Mom always answered with the same line, "How's my Chicago girl today?" She never asked about Nathan. Just listened, just loved. Dad joined sometimes, his voice still gruff but softer. He asked about work, about Zachary. "I haven't heard you this alive in years," he said once, and I believed him. I told him about Caroline, about the jazz nights, about how calm didn't mean boring, it meant safe. I didn't say I'm healed, but I no longer avoided mirrors, no longer flinched when someone said my name with care. Home wasn't Boston anymore, but it was still theirs, and now they were part of mine again too. One Sunday during our weekly call, Mom said gently, "Stephanie asks about you sometimes." I went still, my spoon halfway to my mouth. "What do you tell her?" I asked. "That you're doing well, that Chicago suits you." Her voice was soft, careful. I didn't ask more. Didn't want to know. But part of me already did. "She gets quiet when your name comes up," Mom added. Not cold, just quiet. I stirred pasta sauce without tasting it. My chest ached in that old familiar way. She hadn't reached out, but the silence between us no longer felt sharp. It felt tired. Not forgiveness, not closure, but maybe the beginning of something softer than hate. I kept going to therapy, even on good weeks, especially on the bad ones. My new therapist in Chicago was calm, observant. She never rushed me forward, only held space when I stood still. We talked about control, about shame, about letting people in without expecting the worst. I learned to name my triggers, to say this hurts without apologizing. We didn't erase the past, but we gave it shape. Put it somewhere it couldn't rule me. The nightmares faded. Nathan's voice no longer echoed when I tried to rest. Stephanie's name still stung, but less like a wound, more like an old bruise that remembered too much. Healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant not flinching every time memory knocked, and slowly I started opening the door. In June, Zachary surprised me with a weekend trip to Michigan wine country. Just us. No laptops, no alarms, no expectations. We stayed at a quiet bed and breakfast surrounded by vineyards and the scent of lavender. Afternoons were slow, wine tasting, sun-warmed porches. Evenings were slower blankets, stars, soft music. I didn't check my phone once. Didn't think about Boston. Didn't flinch when someone said love. I laughed full and unguarded. Zachary watched me like it was rare art. Not precious because it was fragile, but because it was finally real. We walked a garden trail just before sunset. I didn't want to rush or hold it too tightly. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. I was here, with him, and it was enough. On our last evening, we walked through the Chicago Botanic Garden. Roses bloomed above us, climbing a quiet trellis. The air smelled like early summer. Zachary stopped, took both my hands. "This year with you," he said, "has been the greatest gift of my life." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, opened it. A simple emerald ring. No flash, no performance, just love steady, quiet, honest. "I'm not asking for an answer today," he said. "Just know whenever you're ready, I'll be here." Tears rose, but they didn't come from fear. They came from peace. "I'm ready now," I whispered. The ring slid onto my finger like it already belonged. Not a symbol of perfection, a promise of presence. This time, I didn't doubt. This time, I said yes, not to a future, to our future. I called my parents that night. Mom cried before I finished the sentence. Dad cleared his throat 3 times before saying, "He sounds like a good man." We talked about venues, dates, flowers, small, simple, ours. Then Mom asked, "Will you invite Stephanie?" I didn't answer right away. My chest tightened, not from anger, just the weight of history. "She might not come," Mom added. But the gesture, it might mean something. That night, I sat by the window holding the pen over a blank envelope. I didn't want closure, I didn't need her blessing, but maybe offering peace didn't mean forgetting, just choosing not to carry it forward. I wrote her name, no expectations, just a door quietly left unlocked. Stephanie replied by email, "Congratulations. Nathan and I have prior commitments. Best wishes for your future." No warmth, but no venom either, just distance. Mom sighed when I told her, "Compared to where you two were, this is progress." Our wedding was small, 30 people, 1-string quartet. A view of the river through old brick windows. Dad walked me down the aisle, whispered, "I haven't seen you this happy in years, kiddo." Zachary waited with steady eyes. His vows were quiet but certain. "I promise to honor the weight of your past without ever letting it define our future." I didn't cry. I smiled. Full, soft. Afterward, we toasted with our closest. No drama, no apologies, just love that had been earned, not imagined. We bought a brownstone in the city. Old floors, warm light, a place we could make ours. I was promoted to vice president. Zachary's firm began backing women-led startups. We worked hard side by side, not against each other. Weekends were for cooking, walking by the lake, talking about baby names we weren't ready for. We didn't rush anything, but we planned slowly with care. At a dinner party, someone mentioned Nathan. Foster and Reynolds, a guest said, used to be rivals, tech wars in early investment circles. I looked at Zachary. He smiled carefully, didn't deny it. Later I asked, and he told me the truth. He knew who Nathan was when we met, not the details, just the name. And still he chose me anyway. We sat on the porch that night, a quiet breeze, 2 mugs of tea between us. "You knew?" I asked. Zachary nodded. "I recognized the name at the conference. People talked. Tech circles are small. I waited for the sting, but it didn't come." "Why didn't you say something? I wanted you to see me as me, not as part of your past." His voice never wavered. "I didn't know the story, just a name, but I knew enough to wait, to let you tell it when you were ready." I looked at the man beside me who never needed to compete, never needed to prove anything, just stayed. Patient, whole. "Thank you," I whispered. He didn't reply, just reached for my hand and held it like it had always been his to keep. We started trying for a baby 2 years into our marriage. At first, it was exciting. Soft smiles, quiet hope, late night name lists, then months passed. And nothing happened. Doctors, tests, phrases like low probability and next steps. I cried in the shower one morning, letting the water hide what I couldn't say. Zachary wrapped his arms around me, towel still in hand. "We'll try," he said. "And if not this, then something else beautiful." We held hands in waiting rooms, laughed between blood draws, whispered comfort in dark bedrooms. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't empty either. Each failed test hurt, but it didn't break us. Hope came softer now, not loud or desperate, just steady. Like everything else we'd built, the call came on a Tuesday. Mom's cancer was back. Aggressive, late stage. Zachary booked flights the same night. We were in Boston by morning. Hospitals, scans, terms we hated. She smiled through it all because that's who she was. Dad looked smaller, older than I remembered. He held her hand like it was keeping him upright. I took a leave from work, moved into my childhood room. Zachary flew in on weekends bringing fresh groceries and quiet strength. Nights were spent adjusting pillows, refilling cups, rereading books Mom already knew by heart. We didn't talk about time, but we both felt it. One night, as I tucked the blanket around her feet, she looked at me and said, "I'm so proud of who you've become." I held her hand and didn't let go. One evening, after Dad fell asleep in his chair, I stayed beside Mom, brushing her hair back gently. Her breathing was slower, but her eyes were clear. She reached for my hand. "I wish you girls could find peace," she said. I didn't speak. "Just let the ache rise and settle." "Not for her," she whispered. "For you, and maybe a little for your old mother." I nodded. A promise I wasn't sure I could keep, but gave her anyway. 3 days later, she passed Zachary, Dad, and I at her side, her hand in mine still warm, still giving. I called Stephanie. Our first real conversation in years. "Mom's gone," I said. A pause, then a breath. "I'll be there in an hour," she replied. And for the first time, I didn't hang up with anger, just silence, and something like grace. The morning of the funeral was gray, light rain tapped against the windows. Even the sky mourned her. Zachary helped Dad with his tie. I stood by the mirror, adjusting my black dress, hands trembling, breath shallow. Stephanie arrived late. Nathan beside her, hand on her waist. Her eyes found mine and held. She looked tired, not glamorous, not cruel, just worn. We nodded, nothing more. During the service, I gave the eulogy. Voice steady, heart fraying. I spoke of my mother's kindness, her quiet strength, how she loved both her daughters even when we forgot how to love each other. Stephanie stood after me. Her hands shook. She barely got through the first sentence, then crumbled into silence, and before I could stop myself, I stepped beside her. Not to fix, just to stand. After the service, guests filled the house with soft voices and casserole dishes. Nathan drifted near the drinks, checking his phone. Stephanie stood alone in the kitchen, a mug in her hands she didn't sip from. I walked in, unsure why. She looked up, eyes red, shoulders tight, not defensive, just tired. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what I said at the funeral home?" I nodded. A small gesture, but it meant something. We sat. Silence stretched, not heavy, just full. Then she whispered, "I'm miserable, Rebecca." The words spilled fast after that, about Nathan's control, the money problems, the lies she didn't see coming until it was too late. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I just needed you to know the truth. I didn't offer comfort, but I didn't walk away either, and somehow that was enough for now." The next day, Zachary flew back to Chicago for work. Dad visited his brother. It was just me and Stephanie in the house where everything once began. We stood in Mom's closet, surrounded by old scarves, half-folded sweaters, and the scent of lavender that never faded. "She knew," Stephanie said, fingering a faded blouse. "She saw it all, and still never gave up on us." We found her journal tucked in a drawer, pages dated and soft, filled with hopes she never spoke aloud. "She wrote about you," I said. "She never stopped believing you'd come back." Stephanie's voice cracked. "I've already seen a lawyer. I'm leaving him." We didn't hug. We folded dresses in silence, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like silence was our enemy. It felt like something trying to heal. Back in Chicago, the apartment felt warmer. Maybe it was just me, less heavy, less guarded. Zachary met me at the airport with coffee, a hug, and no questions. I told him everything. Not all at once, but enough. We unpacked slowly. My bag, the grief, the relief. A week later, I missed a meeting, confused and lightheaded. Zachary joked, "You're glowing but also dizzy." Should I be worried? I wasn't worried. I was wondering. 2 tests later, I sat on the bathroom floor laughing, then crying, positive, after everything. After all the years of trying, of failing quietly and moving on, there it was, a faint pink line reminding me that healing leaves space for life to return. I'm writing this in the nursery. Zachary is painting the last wall a soft green. Our daughter will arrive in weeks, maybe days. Sometimes I still wake up afraid, but the fear doesn't stay. It gives way to something stronger. Peace. I think of my mother, her strength, her belief in soft things surviving. I think of Stephanie, how she's rebuilding slowly, honestly. We text sometimes, and that's enough for now. This life, it wasn't the one I planned, but it's the one I built from everything that tried to break me. If you're listening and you've lost something, a person, a dream, a version of yourself, please know pain doesn't get the final word. Sometimes the hardest chapters lead to the most beautiful endings. And you're not done yet. If this story touched something in you, a memory, a wound, or a hope, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who might feel less alone because of your voice. And if you'd like to join me for more stories of healing love and starting again, hit subscribe. There's more to come. And I'd be honored to walk through it with you.